When we think of the dawn of civilization, we usually picture the same things. We see the towering pyramids of Egypt, built by god-kings to defy death. We see the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, rising from the desert to touch the heavens. We see monuments to ego, to power, and to war. But travel east, across the rugged terrain of modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, and you find something completely different. You find a civilization just as old, and in many ways, far more advanced than its contemporaries. Yet here, there are no statues of conquering generals, no palaces for emperors, no temples for high priests, and perhaps most frustrating of all, not a single word of their writing can be read. Welcome to the Indus Valley Civilization, the greatest mystery of the ancient world. For thousands of years, this civilization was lost to memory. While the Bible kept the stories of Babylon alive, and the Greeks wrote of the Egyptians, the Indus Valley, or the Harappan civilization, vanished completely. It wasn't until the 1920s that the silence was broken. And in a twist of irony, it started with a railroad. In the 19th century, British engineers unknowingly used thousands of ancient kiln-fired bricks from these ruins to build track ballast, having no idea they were dismantling 4,000-year-old cities. When archaeologists finally dug deep in the 1920s, realizing these weren't just random ruins, the timeline of history had to be rewritten. They uncovered a civilization that flourished between 3,300 and 1,300 BCE, reaching its mature peak around 2,600 BCE. To give you a sense of scale, this civilization covered over 1 million square kilometers. That is larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. At its height, 5 million people lived here, spread across more than 1,000 settlements, anchored by 2 massive urban centers, Harappa to the north and the Mound of the Dead, Mohenjo-daro, to the south. But it's not the size of the civilization that baffles experts, it's the design. If you walked into Mohenjo-daro 4,500 years ago, you wouldn't feel like you were in a chaotic ancient settlement. You'd feel like you were in a modern, planned city. These cities were built on a grid, not a haphazard collection of huts, but a strict north-south, east-west grid system. The streets were wide, straight, and oriented to catch the wind for natural air conditioning. And then there's the plumbing. While most of the ancient world was fetching water from muddy rivers, the Indus people were obsessed with water hygiene. They had the world's first urban sanitation systems. Almost every house had a private bathing area. Wastewater flowed out through terracotta pipes into covered sewers running beneath the streets. These sewers had manholes for cleaning and soak pits to filter waste. Frankly, the urban planning here was superior to many European cities, even in the 18th century AD. The centerpiece of Mohenjo-daro isn't a palace or a treasury. It's this, the Great Bath, a massive, watertight tank sealed with bitumen. It suggests that for these people, cleanliness wasn't just hygiene. It was likely a ritual. But note what's missing. There is no throne overlooking the bath, no altar. It is a public monument for the people. They also use standardized weights and measures. A brick found in a village hundreds of miles away had the exact same ratio, 4 to 2 to 1, as a brick found in the capital. This implies a level of bureaucratic control and standardization that is simply mind-boggling for the Bronze Age. And this brings us to the most unsettling question about the Indus Valley. Who was in charge? In Egypt, the pharaoh was God. In Mesopotamia, the king was the intermediary of the gods. Their art is filled with scenes of warfare, captives being trampled, and kings standing taller than everyone else. But in the Indus Valley, we have found nothing. No monumental palaces, no clear royal tombs filled with gold, no depictions of armies conquering enemies. We haven't even found clear evidence of a standing army. We have this famous artifact, often called the Priest King. He looks regal, wearing an armband and a cloak with a trefoil pattern, but he is tiny, only about 17 centimeters tall. Is he a king, a priest, or just a wealthy merchant? We simply don't know. The layout of the city suggests a society that was surprisingly egalitarian. While there were certainly rich and poor, some houses were larger than others. The differences weren't as extreme as in other ancient civilizations. The focus of the city wasn't the glory of a ruler. It was the efficiency of trade and the comfort of the citizens. We know they were powerful. Mesopotamia referred to them as Meluha, a land of ivory, gold, and lapis lazuli. Their jewelry has been found in royal hoards in Iraq. They were global players, yet they managed this massive trade network without the violent projection of power we see elsewhere. Was it a rule by a council of elders, a collection of merchant guilds, a loose confederacy of city-states? The silence of the ruins offers no answer. Of course, we could solve all these mysteries if we could just read what they wrote. But the Indus script remains the Everest of linguistic archaeology. We have found over 4,000 artifacts bearing these symbols, mostly on square stone seals used for trade. There are about 400 distinct signs. We see fish-like symbols, jar shapes, and geometric patterns. But here is the problem. The inscriptions are incredibly short. The average inscription is only 5 symbols long. The longest one ever found? Just 26 characters. Because we don't have a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual text translating these symbols into a known language like Sumerian, we are stuck. Some linguists believe the script represents a Proto-Dravidian language, the ancestor of languages spoken in southern India today. Others argue it's related to Indo-European, or perhaps the Munda languages. There is even a controversial theory that these aren't words at all, but non-linguistic symbols, like medieval heraldry or modern corporate logos, Nike swooshes, and Apple icons of the Bronze Age. Imagine if our civilization collapsed and all that remained were credit cards. Future archaeologists might find thousands of plastic squares with the word Visa on them. They might think Visa was the name of our king. So, how does a civilization this advanced, this stable, and this widespread just end? For a long time, historians believed in a dramatic, violent end, the so-called Aryan invasion theory, where warriors from the north destroyed the cities. But modern archaeology has largely debunked this. There are no layers of ash, no mass graves of war victims in the streets. The killer wasn't an army, it was the climate. Around 1900 BCE, the monsoons began to shift. The Great Saraswati River, which many identify as the Ghaggar-Hakra river system that ran parallel to the Indus, began to dry up as tectonic shifts diverted its water. The lifeblood of the cities vanished. The meticulous sewers clogged. The trade networks collapsed. The people didn't die out, they moved on. They migrated east toward the Ganges Plain, leaving their brick metropolises to the encroaching sands. The Indus Valley Civilization challenges everything we assume about human history. It proves that you don't need a tyrant to build a great society. It proves that sanitation and urban planning are as ancient as warfare. Today, Mohenjo-daro sits in danger of erosion, salt damage, and neglect. But beneath the soil of Pakistan and India, thousands of sites remain unexcavated. Somewhere in those buried layers, or perhaps on a clay tablet hidden in a museum basement in Iraq, lies the key to the script. And on the day we finally crack that code, the people of the Indus will speak to us again. Until then, they remain the silent ghosts of the Bronze Age, watching us from their orderly, grid-lined streets, keeping their secrets. Just a little while longer.